Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your guy Rudy SKC. Welcome to a brand new video. Unfortunately, guys, the Pistons fall today to the Pacers 111-100 in LCA, and probably, unfortunately, one of the more important games in seeding. Today's been a pretty crazy day, actually, in Michigan sports. Michigan lost to Minnesota, of all teams. I think that's pretty sure that's a tier 3 game. Or quad 3 game, and it was on a game winner in overtime, and it was from half court too, so absolutely an unbelievable game. Unfortunately, I was not able to catch that game because I was focused on the Pistons, but, if we would have come out with an analysis video on that. Again, I saw, some portions of the game, and I was seeing trends, and, part of it was, again, turnovers, and then letting the other team off the hook in the second half and letting them come back. So hopefully that's something that Michigan can get cleaned up. On the positive note, at least, the Red Wings beat the Panthers in probably one of the best wins of the season. Thought it was really great to see how the team would rebound after the game against San Jose, where you lose to the worst team in the league. Now you go out on the road and you get a convincing victory against a team that's been in the last 2 Stanley Cups. So for the Wings, to me, it was really positive, and it was a sign of growth to show that, they're real. No, this isn't just a new coach bump, that the team is actually real, right? For the Pistons, though, we got to talk about it. Obviously, I don't think this loss in the grand scheme of things, anything to be concerned about, right? It's basketball, guys. Losses are going to happen. And the Pistons tonight, they look like a team who was tired, not ready to play, discombobulated, and not matching the energy of the Pacers. And yes, these nights happen. Unfortunately, it had to happen on a night where you go up against a team who's not only just one of your historic rival teams within the Central Division of the Eastern Conference, right? Not just a historical rival, but also a team that you would really have loved to beat to get better positioning up. If you won this game, Detroit, you would have been in the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. You would have been out of the play-in. So it's unfortunate that out of all the teams you had to lose to, out of all the teams you had to play your worst basketball against in this last stretch, it had to be the Indiana Pacers. And we've seen the Pistons have some terrible first halves in the past and be able to overcome them. And today they just weren't able to do that against the Pacers. I mean, last game we talked about this, right? But what a great, first quarter, the amount of intensity in that game against the Knicks. They were nowhere close to matching that anywhere. And I actually missed the first quarter of this game, so I only started watching from the second quarter. But even from where I started, it just wasn't there. It looked like the Pacers were out Detroiting Detroit, right? And again, nights like those happen. But, you have to reflect and say, hey, what went wrong? And in a game like this, where, it was just kind of seemed like Detroit was discombobulated, they were playing their worst basketball, the Pistons still had a chance to pull it through at the end. If some kind of they brought it to within a 6, I believe. If they had some kind of fourth quarter heroics, if maybe a shot or something went their way in that fourth quarter, who knows? Maybe they could have made a run and tried to tie the game, win the game, like we've seen them win with other kind of sloppy games. Even that Kings game where we had the Jaden Ivey game winner, that was a sloppy game by the Pistons for the first couple quarters and part of the third quarter until they started their comeback. Today was similar, except they couldn't pull it out at the end, and that's expected. That's expected that you have games like this. And in my opinion, the only reason that you lose a game like this to the Pacers is 2 things, right? First one is the turnover bug, and the second one is 3-point shooting. The Pistons lost the turnover battle 19-9. And they lost the 3-point percentage battle from 43% by Indiana to 25% from Detroit. Now, even though on the glass they were competing tonight, in those aspects, when you lose the turnover battle, when you're careless with the basketball, when you get loose with the basketball, when you're not matching the intensity on these pick and rolls, that's what creates turnovers. And when you have turnovers and you can't shoot the ball, going to be really hard to overcome those 2 things. Those are 2 of the big 3 in basketball, right? The modern day basketball. Limit your turnovers, right? Limit your turnovers, high 3-point shooting percentage, get rebounds. You do these 3 things, most of the time you will win games. And the Pistons did not do 2 out of the 3 well. And credit to Indiana, because on the turnover side, I think, part of it we can say the Pistons didn't match Indiana's intensity, but man, Indiana's defense was looking good. I mean, you talk about the length that their wings have between Nice and Jarris Walker was a monster tonight. I mean, Tim Hardaway, he ran him off the three-point line every time. And then when he got inside there, I mean, there's nothing anyone was getting on Jarris Walker. He played an unbelievable game today out on the wing, on the defensive side. He's looking like everything he was drafted to be. Miles Turner's length, obviously, when it comes to the paint. Nembhard, I'll be honest, I think Nembhard probably did one of the best individual performances on the defensive side this year against Cade Cunningham. Let me rephrase that. He had, in my opinion, one of the best defensive performances on Cade Cunningham compared to anyone else in the league so far this year. And that's saying something, because of how good Cade Cunningham's been. So credit to Nembhard, really. He did a great job. I'll say this, Nembhard's not the most athletic guy. And I think Cade, he's able to use his body a little bit better on the really athletic defensive guards that he has to face. But when you have a guy like Nembhard who really knows how to use his body as well, you could tell that it took Cade a second to figure him out. And he didn't really figure out Nembhard until maybe the third-ish quarter. Until then, Nembhard, he was doing a great job. He was forcing tough shots from Cade. Even the shots that did go in, nothing was easy. Nothing was easy for Cade. So credit to Nembhard and those long arms that he has. That's a big thing, man. I'm starting to see with Indiana, that's literally a coach's dream to have wings with the length and the wingspan that the Pacers have. It's literally a coach's dream on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that was and that was part of the reason that they forced so many turnovers. The other thing was, I think, against the Pistons, they were really good at defending the pick and roll action. The pick and roll and the screen and roll, in my opinion. You rarely saw when someone else brought up the court, right? The Pistons love to get Cade Cunningham the ball. Bringing Cade off a screen was very difficult today because of the way the Pacers were competing on the defensive side of the ball. And when I say we didn't match their intensity, that's what I mean. The way that they were able to get off our ball screens and get really tight on the people that were coming off the screen for us. It was great. Great for the Pacers. And frankly, that's what the Pistons are going to see if they make the playoffs. That's the type of intensity that you're going to have to match. So either as a screener, you need to set a harder screen, or as the roll man, you need to burst out with more energy. And that's just something that the Pistons are going to have to learn, right? Because for so long, you've been playing not just regular season basketball, you've been playing loser basketball. Now, you're not just playing regular season basketball, you're playing winning basketball. You're playing basketball for seeding against teams that matter. And the Pacers, they're a team that matters. They're a good basketball team. And they're at the same level as you. But again, three things. Turnovers, three-point shooting, and rebounds. And if you can't do well in most of those three categories, it's going to be very hard to win the game, right? So again, turnovers, Pistons did not do a great job in my opinion. There were some careless turnovers, especially by Cade. But for the most part, you have to credit Indiana's defense too. The other thing I wanted to mention, Cade had 20 and 9. I really think that this game highlights something. When Cade is not, Cade's not going to be unstoppable every single night, right? There are going to be games where he has off nights, and today was kind of an off night, right? He was 1 of 8 from 3, 7 of 21 from the field. The Indiana, they did a good job on defense on Cade. You force him into tough shots, right? But sometimes with Cade, that doesn't matter. The Knicks played good defense on Cade. He got whatever he wanted. So this game, when his shot isn't falling, right? Because he was actually fairly good at the rim today. His shot was not falling from 3, and even in the high level mid-range, high level paint and mid-range, his 3 was not falling either, or his long 2s were not falling either. So when your shot is off, who's the other person who can create in the half court, right? You have Beasley, right? You have Hardaway. These are your shooters. Asar, can he create in the half court consistently? I don't know, because he's not an offensive threat. He's not a proven offensive threat himself. He's getting there, but he's not there yet. So to me, if the Pistons want to be serious, and again, this is where we've talked about it 100 times on this channel. Missing Jaden Ivey, it makes life difficult for the Pistons. It makes life difficult. So at the trade deadline, right, there's one of two options for the Pistons, right? You can either try to shop. Well, the Pistons, first of all, I'll say this. The Pistons, they should not try to sell for sure, okay? Let's get that clear. You should not try to sell, you try to position yourself for a higher draft pick, get rid of some of the vets, right? It's absolutely off the table. Pistons, they're either going to do what? They're either going to, buy in, and they're either going to try to get, either a center who can stretch the floor, who can block shots. So, you're not tiring out Duren and Stu, even though Paul Reed has given some good minutes at the third string five when he's been needed. Miles Turner, that was a great audition for the Pistons. Just imagine how deadly that could be. Or you get another ball handler. And in my opinion, you go for the ball handler, right? I feel like the stretch five, like a Miles Turner archetype player, that's a move that you have to really evaluate before you make. Because if you make that move, you're essentially saying we're moving on from Duren. Duren's not going to be the five going forward, or at least the starting five for this team going forward. And I don't think you can say that yet. Does it make the team better immediately and probably better in the immediate future? Yes, it does. But can you say that Duren's potential over someone won't be bigger in 2 to 3 years? I don't think you can yet. I really don't. I don't think we've seen enough. So to me, I think you hold off on making the trade for that kind of center archetype. But you do have to get some kind of other playmaking one. Marcus Sasser cannot be your backup point guard. Plain and simple. He's a great player, but he's not a one. He's not a point guard. You need someone who can create off the bench for you. And when Cade's not on the floor, or when Cade's having even an off night like this, where his shot isn't falling, you need someone else to be able to generate offense in the half court. If you're the Pistons and you're getting a ton of turnovers, you're playing great defense, you get out in transition, that's a different story. Because then you get your shooters going. And when you get your shooters going, that gets them going in the half court too. But it starts in transition. It starts with them getting good looks. But they can't be consistently generating those shots for themselves when it comes to the half court offense. And that's what happens in the playoffs. It's what happened tonight. You've played back-to-back playoff games pretty much. And you've seen the flaws that have been highlighted. So to me, for the Pistons, how are you going to attack this deadline? Trajan Langdon, how is he going to attack this trade deadline? You go down with the Pistons, right? If you really look at who is flexible, who isn't really a long-term piece, there's a lot of names that are interesting. Obviously, as Pistons fan, Fontecchio can go in a trade. He's totally fine to be thrown in. But that's not gonna get the job done, because who's gonna want just Fontecchio in a trade? Maybe someone who's selling, who's super desperate, but you'd have to throw in some picks, right? If you look at the team, right? Asar off the table. Tobias, in my opinion, he's expendable. Great locker room presence, but if you get the right guy, he's expendable. Jalen Duren, I wouldn't say you can trade him yet. THJ is expendable. Beasley, I don't know. I don't think he's expendable. Cade, obviously not expendable. Cade, he's staying, so he's definitely not going anywhere. Beasley, I'd probably put borderline. If you get a guy with the right price. Now, if you're trading Malik Beasley, you have to get someone who's great. And if you guys are coming at me saying, why on earth would you want to trade Malik Beasley? He's been shooting the ball off his fingers this year at an extraordinary rate. Is it sustainable? I don't know. We've seen Malik Beasley have long stretches in the past in his career where he's not getting 3-point shots. And yes, he's a great asset to have because, he's not just a 3-point shooter. He can generate his own shot in spurts from the mid-range. He can drive. But is he really that valuable to say if you're getting the right player, you're not going after him in a trade? I don't think so. Fontecchio, obviously. Stu, I think, is super valuable to this team, and I'd be the most sad to see him go. But again, he is expendable. Ron Holland, absolutely not expendable. I think Sasser's slightly expendable too, for the right guy. If you want to look and say in this list, who I'd be totally okay with without any strings attached letting go, I'd probably say Tobias, Fontecchio, and some picks. And you got to try to find some kind of primary ball handler who can generate offense. And it can't be someone for the rest of for someone just like a half-year rental. This has to be a guy that we can rely going forward for the next few years. So if you're Trajan Langdon and you're trying to make a big move at the trade deadline, those are your options. You know, you could go out and maybe even look for a guy like Cam Payne. You know, Cam Payne, we saw him, or I guess we didn't see him. The Warriors saw him. Sorry, yeah, I got my games mixed up. But Cam Payne, great option for you to get, who can run the backup one, who can generate shots consistently, who can drive to the rim consistently. Who else? Yeah, you have a ton of other options for the Pistons to look at. I'll be honest, I'm okay with, I've told you guys this before, I'm okay with keeping the pieces where they're at and getting another playmaker like an Ish Smith type player. He doesn't have to be crazy. He doesn't have to be a borderline all-star. He doesn't have to be a fantastic role player even. He just needs to be someone who can get this offense into good looks when Cade is not having his A game. Because you see, this team is not going to succeed in the playoffs. They could succeed in a play-in. Not going to succeed in the playoffs if they don't have that guy next to Cade. So to me, that's something that you definitely need to target. One thing I will say, this game, I was extremely proud of the way that Stu and Duren fought. Stu had 13 rebounds. Duren had 17 rebounds. Outside of I think Duren a couple times he let Miles Turner get wide open threes because he was sagging too deep. Outside of a couple times, which was honestly probably pissed everyone off, all Pistons fans off, he was really solid on defense. Same thing with Stu. He was really solid on defense. Duren got a crazy block off the backside help today, which is unbelievable. So I mean, yeah, they were both fantastic. And to me, that's something for the Pistons where if you have those guys playing that level of ball, you're dominating the glass, right? Let me actually confirm that. Let's look at the rebounding battle, right? You look at the Pistons. What do they have? The Pistons ended up with, give me a second, guys. Pistons ended up with 55 rebounds. Pacers ended up with 40. You out-rebounded Indiana by 15, but you lost the game because you didn't generate enough offensive possessions for yourself because of turnovers. And when you did, and you got great looks, you couldn't hit the three ball. It's three things, guys. That's the basketball of the 2020s. It's three things: turnovers, three-point shooting, and rebounding. And if you can do those three things successfully, you have a really good chance of winning on any given night. So, but great job, great effort by those guys down in the block. I genuinely just think our perimeter players, they came out tired today. You know, they were lacking in intensity. They weren't getting off screens well. The refs officiated another horrible game, and again on both sides. I can't complain and just say it was for the Pistons. There were some horrific calls for the Pacers too. So, you know, they continue to just be terrible. But to me, for the Pistons, this is something that it's not that big of a deal in the long run. It's not that big of a deal. It highlights your flaws, as any loss does. Highlights your flaws. But it's not that big of a deal. It's basketball. Because guess what? We're going to be back on Saturday against the Suns. And I'll be back with my game recap. And hopefully, Saturday will be a happy doubleheader night for uploads. Because you guys know what's Saturday. It's Lions versus Commanders. And I told you guys I'd have a recap video out. I'll have that video out tomorrow. You know, I thought it might be nice to have it out right before the game, the day before the game. So hopefully Saturday, when I catch you guys next, we'll have a dub for the Pistons versus Suns and a dub for the Lions versus Commanders. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.